Chapter 826, Ekang as his clone. Time passed. In the blink of an eye, 180 years went by. Nearly 200 years. To a mortal, this was more than 2 lifetimes. It was a luxury they could not imagine. However, to cultivators, this small amount of time would perhaps naturally pass by if they fully immersed themselves in isolation. More than 300 years had passed since Su Ming came to Western Ring Nebula's foreign land. But even after that time, the Duke of Crimson Flame still had yet to wake up. He had turned into a brand on Su Ming's arm, and Su Ming had no idea whether it was because of the mysteries in this land, but the Duke remained in deep sleep. Su Ming had been puzzled by this before, about why the Duke of Crimson Flame had come to this place with him but did not have a stone monument to show his existence. He had thought about it for a long time, but could not obtain an answer, and in time he stopped thinking about it. The bald crane also could not leave Su Ming's storage bag. He had tried several times, and discovered that the bald crane could only appear when he was in the world in the stone monuments. However, once he returned to the land with those 100,000 stone monuments, it was as if it was sealed, and not even the bald crane could break through it. Perhaps this was not a seal, but part of the law in this land. Thankfully, Su Ming had tried once in the Golden Sea, and the bald crane could appear. Once he promised a large amount of crystals to it, the bald crane struck its chest excitedly and agreed to Su Ming's plan, which made it even more likely to succeed. After his first failure in possessing the golden tree, Su Ming had once again descended into an obdurate state. He had made his stone monument reach 900,000 feet 7 times and entered the cultivation planet within the Golden Sea 7 times more. He tried to possess the golden tree time and again, failing repeatedly, and came face to face with the golden tree's crazed and enraged intent to kill him. But with Sui Chenzi's law, that power that could instantly kill him several thousands of times over was forcefully turned into the power that reversed time. Due to this, Su Ming did not feel any danger, despite failing 7 tries. Among them, the shortest time he had lasted was when the tree had instantly discovered that he was trying to possess it. The longest time he lasted was a full span of 9 breaths. This made Su Ming's previous assumption wrong. He was slightly unclear as to how such a deviation of time could appear in regards to the tree discovering someone trying to possess it. The span between 1 breath and 9 breaths might not seem long, but those few breaths was usually the key that determined whether a person would live or die. With the tree's strength, this sort of inconsistency should not be present. This became something that troubled Su Ming a great deal. He needed time. Only when he had sufficient time would he be able to complete the possession. He had even made calculations before, because of which he knew that he would need approximately the span of 900 breaths to succeed. As long as his actions were not stopped during those 900 breaths, he had confidence that once he had his soul fill all the tree's Venus pathways, then with the Abyss Builder's inborn ability, his chances of success would be much greater than of all the others that had tried to possess the tree. This was because the other people had tried to possess the tree's real body, while Su Ming was doing no such thing. An Abyss Builder's possession was different from the others. In fact, it was not really a form of possession, but rebirth. From the golden tree's body, he would use its quintessence, its life force, and all its power to form a new body. It would be the same as rebirth, and this reborn body would become Su Ming's clone. This was a rebirth stemming from a possession that worked its way from the soul to the outer parts of the body. Compared to the other possessions that worked their ways from the outer parts of the body to the inner parts of the soul, it was only natural that Su Ming's chances of success were greater. It was just like how a person could easily crush a bug that was lying on the skin and wanted to crawl in, but would find it difficult to kill a bug that was living inside the body. Just what sort of reason could cause changes in the time taken for the tree to notice me when trying to possess it? This was a question that had been plaguing Su Ming's mind for 180 years. If he did not solve this mystery, then even if he had perfected most of his plan for successful possession, he would still not be able to buy himself the span of 900 breaths. This question continued lingering in his mind for another 30 years, and when Su Ming attempted his 9th possession, he finally noticed something. This time, the time he could spend possessing the tree was 15 breaths. 15 breaths was something that he had never achieved before, but the key lay in Su Ming noticing that there were 14 people's stone monuments around him that turned from 900,000 feet to only several tens of thousands of feet tall after his 9th try and subsequent failure once again. This meant that, including him, there were 15 people who took the stone monument's 1 million feet test. This discovery excited Su Ming. He tried once again after that, and when he was in this place for a full 360 years, he was certain that there was a huge connection to the time taken for the tree to notice him trying to possessing it and the number of people who were taking the test at the same time. Once he was certain of this, he did not choose to immediately take the test and try to possess the tree when his stone monument reached 900,000 feet. Instead, he waited. He did so quietly, looking for the best time, when there would be the highest amount of people taking the test at the same time. As Su Ming waited, time slowly passed by. 1 year, and another year. Su Ming waited for 50 years, then 100 years. He was so incredibly obstinate with his goal that it was already impossible to describe his stubbornness with words. He sat cross-legged before his stone monument. He would rather give up on the chance to train and continue waiting. There was a time where there were 17 people who took the test in succession within a short period of time. Then there were 19 people who took it, followed by 21 people, but he chose to give up on all of those. He refused to believe that there would not be a time where there would be more than 100 people among these 10,000 people who would take the test at the same time. Su Ming continued waiting until 300 years went by. With the previous amount of time that he spent in this place, Su Ming had been trapped in this foreign land for 700 years by then. 700 years were equivalent to several generations for mortals. Su Ming's hair was long, his body was emaciated, his eyes were crazed, and his mind was highly strung. At that moment, he was completely different from the time when he had just arrived to this place 700 years ago. An ancient and aged air radiated off his body, along with madness. In fact, some of the people who came to this foreign land were unable to recognize Su Ming as Su Ming after the blood identification pearl lost its effect upon entering this place because at that moment, his outward appearance was not that much different from the old monsters that had been trapped in the place for who knew how long. However, there was a fire burning in his heart. It was doing so furiously, forcing down his madness, and waiting for the day it would erupt. Su Ming waited for almost another 100 years. Then, when he'd been trapped for almost 800 years in Western Ring Nebula's foreign land, the day arrived. 124 people's stone monuments reached 900,000 something feet at around the same time. They might not have reached that height at the same time, but they received the test in succession, and this was the first time more than 100 people took the test after Su Ming had waited for 400 years. Perhaps this was not the largest number. Perhaps if he continued waiting, more people who reached that height would appear at the same time after thousands or tens of thousands of years, or even longer. But perhaps, even after a very long time, such a thing would not happen again. That was why at the moment those 124 people took the test at the same time, Su Ming, who had been sitting and meditating without moving for 400 years, instantly lighted up. It was as if the fire of life that had been suppressed for 400 years erupted and flamed up at that instant. It's time. If I still fail, then my chances of success will become incredibly slim. This time is my biggest hope and my greatest chance for success. Su Ming lifted his head. The overlapping shadows of the runic symbols in his right eye might not have changed during the 400 years, but during the times he had worked his way to take the test again, they had long since reached the total of 10,000. He also discovered a long time ago that once he reached 10,000 runic symbols, their number would stop increasing. This was also one of the reasons why he chose to wait in place for 400 years. At that moment, as the overlapping shadows of the runic symbols in his right eye shone, the vortex appeared on the stone monument before him that had reached 9,800,000 feet 400 years ago. As the vortex spun rapidly, Su Ming's body became obscure. When his vision cleared up, he found himself once again in the galaxy near the Golden Sea. After not seeing it for 400 years, a brilliant light that could light up even the sky shone in his eyes when he saw it. That light possessed a fighting spirit, madness, and also the strength born from Su Ming holding himself back and bearing with it patiently for 400 years. With his fastest speed, he only used the time it takes for an incense stick to burn to shoot through the Golden Sea that had been incredibly difficult for him to pass through all those years ago. After losing only several thousand runic symbols, he shot out of the highest layer of wind in that cultivation planet and stepped into the sky once again. As he came face to face with those numerous familiar faces and that branch that came charging towards him swiftly from the distance, a violent burst of light shone in Su Ming's eyes. At the instant that branch touched his body, his soul, came out with a bang. At the same time, the bald crane let out a shrill screech and flew out from the storage bag Su Ming had kept on his body and charged towards his soul. The bald crane had always just been an illusion and did not possess a corporeal body. After multiple tests in the world within the stone monument, Su Ming had discovered that his soul could incorporate the bald crane's existence. As he fought against the power that reversed time, Su Ming's soul enveloped the bald crane. Once he touched the branch, with familiar ease, he used his fastest speed and the strongest amount of power he could muster to make his soul explode and spread out. In the blink of an eye, he covered a small area of those golden Venus pathways, covering them in black. Time passed breath by breath, as Su Ming roared in his heart. He did not want to fail again. He wanted to succeed. Hurry up! Hurry up! Hurry up! Su Ming roared in his heart. His soul was spreading out rapidly, and during the 20th breath, he had already occupied nearly 3/100 of the Venus pathways in the place. This was the most he had occupied out of all the times he had tried. In an instant, he had surpassed the peak of what he had ever achieved. As time passed and Su Ming roared in his heart, the 40th breath arrived, but there was still no shred of will coming from the golden tree. Su Ming thus occupied a 7/100 of all the Venus pathways in the tree. 60 breaths, 80 breaths. When the 100th breath arrived, Su Ming noticed that a loud boom coming from the world where the golden Venus pathways were. At that time, his soul had already occupied a 1/10 of all the Venus pathways in the tree. This was not just a brilliant achievement Su Ming had never managed to reach in his life, but it was also the maximum that less than 10 out of the thousands of people who had tried to possess the golden tree had managed to achieve over the endless years. There were still 20-something breaths left. 20 breaths later, at the instant Su Ming's soul occupied 14/100 out of all the Venus pathways, Su Ming gave up on continuing. Instead, he roared in his heart and turned his voice into a sound that echoed within him. Bald crane. Almost at the instant his voice sounded, the bald crane that had been enveloped by his soul let out a piercing screech. Change! Change! I'm telling you, change! The bald crane had known about Su Ming's plan from the start, since he had told it when they were in the world inside the stone monument. The bald crane also knew just how important the possession this time was to Su Ming, especially since he had even promised a large amount of crystals. This exited the bird so much that it did not consider failure as an option. Because of this, it used probably an even greater amount of strength than what it had mustered when it fused with the divinity incarceration rune. As the bald crane roared, all the Venus pathways that had been occupied by Su Ming's soul were immediately covered by a layer of ripples. When they went away, those Venus pathways turned from black to gold, and Su Ming's presence was no longer around, making the tree seem to be in the exact same state as when it was before he tried to possess it. It was also at this time that a furious roar came from within the tree. Damn it, you're here again, Yu. Heh. Chapter 827. Yikang as his clone Su Ming's soul remained completely still. The bald crane was also incredibly nervous. It could sense a presence coming out from the golden tree that horrified and disgusted it. The pressure also surpassed that of divinity incarceration rune. In fact, under that presence and pressure, the bald crane's muddled memories became slightly disorderly. It seemed to have some sort of recollection of this golden tree, but it could not remember it clearly. As the furious roar echoed in the air, followed by that light puzzled gasp, the runic symbol formed by the vast number of Venus pathways shone. A huge will instantly swept through the entire area, yet when it reached the spot where the bald crane had transformed to cover Su Ming, it simply swept past them. And then again and again. It was impossible for Su Ming not to get nervous. This directly tied with the success of his plan to possess the tree and turn it to his clone. If the bald crane's transformation art was discovered, then the sooner that happened, the lower Su Ming's chances of success would be. Only if he wasn't discovered for a good while and managed to gain the span of 800 breaths would he succeed. The bald crane executed its full strength to control its transformation art and conceal Su Ming's presence. It made the area that was covered by its transformation art look exactly same as those golden Venus pathways no matter how anyone looked at it. Time trickled by. Several breaths later, a cold harumph came from that powerful will. That damn Sui Chenzi. Why can't you just stay dead? How dare the law you left behind lord over me? Damn it! Damn it all! Or else I would have killed that person who dared to try possess me a long time ago. Sui Chen Zi. You don't deserve sympathy even if you died. You deserved death. If it wasn't because I dared fighting back all those years ago, how could this have happened to me? How could this have happened to Emmy? A crazed roar shouted out, coming from that will, before it gradually disappeared. Ha ha, I made it. Your grandpa Crane is good, eh? How dare this small little shrub try to fight against me? Heh heh, I just did a small, insignificant transformation, and it couldn't discover me, ha ha. The bald crane sent out a voice with its soul in excitement. As it was feeling smug about itself, it seemed to have forgotten its previous fear and nervousness. Little boy Sue, don't forget the crystals you promised me. This time, I've used all my strength and didn't hold back even a single bit. I'm seriously tired, you know? Look at my small wings and feet, they've become thinner. The bald crane quickly used that opportunity to emphasize its hard work and its contribution. Su Ming remained silent. He did not look at the bald crane's small wings and feet. To the bald crane, whose body was formed by its illusory soul, if it wanted to, it could just turn into a giant with huge wings and feet. Time was running short. At the instant that Great Will faded away, Su Ming spread his soul outwards once more and continued occupying the golden tree. One breath passed by, and another. With each breath that passed, Su Ming's chances of success would increase slightly. To him, this was a scramble, a wrestling match for time. Hurry up! Hurry up! Faster! Su Ming roared in his heart. His soul continued spreading out. From his previous 1400ths, he reached 16, 18, 20. All the areas that were covered by his soul would be enveloped by the bald crane's transformation art at the same time, causing that black color to turn gold, and preventing the trees from noticing it. When Su Ming covered 2800ths of the Venus pathways, nearly 100 breaths had passed since the bald crane had appeared. This sort of speed could already be considered incredibly quick, but Su Ming still felt that he was slow. He saw himself as a thief that had entered a stranger's house to rob it while the owner was still in the house. Only by finishing it swiftly would his chances of success grow higher. The bald crane looked excited, but in truth, the nervousness in its heart had never reduced the slightest bit. As time passed, that nervousness became even stronger, and it could not help but start urging Su Ming to hurry up. Hurry up! Hurry up! Stop! The bald crane immediately sent out a piercing shout with its soul, and the spread of Su Ming's soul instantly stopped. Almost at the instant he did so, a crazed roar that brought with it a great will that could destroy everything descended on their area again. The roaring voice of that will swept through the place as it searched ceaselessly. You damned insect, you're still here. I know you're still here. You despicable, shameless bastard. I don't know what method you used to hide yourself, but I will find you. I will definitely find you. That great will continued sweeping past the area again and again, and the bald crane was incredibly nervous, not daring to move even a single inch. In the blink of an eye, 10 breaths passed by, and the great will still searched through the area, doing it even more frequently, and it was growing even stronger. At that moment, it was already several times greater than before, and as it swept through the area, booming sounds rang out without stop. I refuse to believe that I can't find you, you despicable bastard. As the trees roared, the golden Venus pathways suddenly twisted at the same time before drawing close to the heart that was exuding aura of death, located at the center. The bald crane quickly used its transformation art and performed a corresponding act, causing the area that was covered by Su Ming's soul to also twist, behaving in the exact same manner as the other places. However, at the instant the golden Venus pathways retracted and approached the heart that was filled with aura of death, Su Ming suddenly felt a great sense of danger. At the same time, as the trees roared, the heart that was filled with the aura of death contracted. After it did so, it expanded swiftly, as if it was completing a beat. Thud! That heart beat once, and a purplish gold fog spread out. Wherever that fog passed, it would tumble about endlessly. When it touched the area that was enveloped by the bald crane's transformation art, the bald crane let out a shrill scream. It found us. So you're here, the trees roared. At the same time its voice echoed in the air, a heinous destructive will charged towards the area where the two were hiding. There was no hesitation within Su Ming. Since he was already discovered, he would not hide any longer. Instead, as he spread out the power of his soul, he sent a shout to the bald crane. 10,000 crystals! When the bald crane heard Su Ming's voice, its body instantly gathered together to turn into its original appearance. It shuddered from the stimulation brought by the mention of 10,000 crystals. The bald crane lifted its head and howled, its eyes bloodshot. At that moment, Su Ming's words were the only things that echoed in its heart. 10,000 crystals. To it, this was a temptation greater than anything else in the world. This sort of temptation was enough to make it go mad. 10,000 crystals. 10,000 glittering crystals. With the 5,000 crystals Su Ming promised me earlier, I'll have 15,000 crystals. I'll give it my all. Everything. Everything within me. At that moment, the bald crane was no longer the bald crane. It was a warrior that did not fear death nor any of the powerful warriors in the entire universe. With an indomitable presence, fearlessness towards the world, obsession towards crystals, and madness that would destroy all manner of things that wanted to stop it from obtaining its crystals, it rushed towards the trees which was charging over while flinging all caution to the wind. The bald crane loved crystals, but it loved harboring grudges even more. And it harbored a grudge towards the four great true worlds for shutting down the divinity incarceration rune, which made it so it could no longer extort Su Ming. This made the bald crane so resentful that it practically clenched its teeth in anger while it slept. At this moment, it also hated the tree, not because of standing in its way, but because this tree was stronger than the bald crane itself. 20,000. You have to give me 20,000 crystals. Give me another 5,000 and make it 20,000 crystals. And I will fight with my life, the bald crane roared. In its madness, it asked for additional 5,000 crystals. I'll give you 30,000. Su Ming sent his voice to the bald crane with his soul. He was using his full might to quickly cover the area where those Venus pathways were. Just a little bit more, and he would be able to cover 29/100ths of the Venus pathways. The bald crane went mad, and just like a real warrior, it crashed straight into the tree's will. Bang! As a loud noise reverberated in the air, the tree's will, which was incredibly terrifying to Su Ming, tumbled backwards when it crashed against its opposition. The body of the bald crane crumbled and fell apart, then gathered together once again 1,000 feet away. It roared and rose up. An enraged howl came from the tree's will. It's you. Damn it. I remember now. You failure. How dare you still show yourself in front of me? You're not worthy of showing yourself before me. As the tree's roars echoed in the air, Su Ming's soul occupied 29/100ths, and as he pressed on, he occupied 30/100ths. Nearly a third of that large area of Venus pathways had turned black and exuded Su Ming's presence. This level of occupation was something that no one among the thousands of people that tried to possess the tree had ever been able to achieve. At the instant Su Ming possessed this much, a booming sound rang out in his heart. Right then, a gigantic picture rose in his soul. Within that picture was a big tree in the galaxy. The size of that tree was so great that its end could not be seen with the naked eye. A cultivation planet would be incredibly tiny compared to it. That tree was entirely purple, and the strength of the mighty pressure that spread out from it felt like it would need only a single thought to shatter the whole universe. However, that colossal tree was not covered head to toe in purple. There was golden light shining from within it, making it seem purplish golden. This was the picture that appeared in Su Ming's soul after he occupied a third of the Venus pathways in that tree. During that instant, he also became aware that this was the real body of the tree that he was trying to possess. The tree was incomplete, however many of its parts had withered. It might look incredibly big, but there was aura of death and a dismal presence spreading out from it. Yet even so, the shock it brought to Su Ming was still incredibly great. His soul was connected to the bald crane, which was why when he saw that scene, the bald crane also saw it. It was originally rising to a clamor and roaring, but once it saw that tree, it was suddenly stunned, and during that instant, the endless memories that existed like fragments in its mind grouped together for a moment. Kang. You're Kang. You're not dead. You weren't killed by Xianxia. You're still alive. The bald crane had no idea why it said these words. Confusion filled its face, but its voice was shrill, and there was even a hint of fear in it. Remember me now? You failure. Xianxia, that damn bastard, he still doesn't have the right to kill me. You went against the will of heavens. You failure. You traitor. The trees were roared, and as it echoed in the air, the confusion on the bald crane's face became even greater. Its voice became even more piercing to the ears when it spoke next. You're incomplete. You were injured badly. Su Ming. Possess it. Make it your clone. If it was complete and uninjured, then there would be no one that could possess it in all the worlds that exist in the universe. But now, you have a chance to succeed. I'll help you possess it. The bald crane's face was still puzzled as it screamed shrilly. Chapter 828. Yikang as his clone, the purplish golden tree knew the bald crane, and judging by the two's words, the tree was known as Yikang. Also, based on what it said about the bald crane, the latter was a traitor and a failure. The bald crane knew the tree's name. It had even mentioned that the tree was incomplete, and that it had been injured gravely. Most importantly, Su Ming had also heard the bald crane mentioning Xianxia's name while having a dazed expression on its face. You weren't killed by Xianxia. Judging by these words, not only does it now this Yikang, it also knows Xianxia. Could it be that the bald crane is an existence that belongs to the same generation as Xianxia? Why did Xianxia want to kill the tree? What sort of connection do they have? Several questions rose in Su Ming's heart. There was something bizarre about this, and the amount of guesses he had regarding the bald crane's existence rose up once more. He had originally thought that the bald crane, with its mysterious background, had a great connection to the fifth true world, but due to some form of accident, it had lost its memories and became this way, wandering about until it arrived in Yin Death region. There, it had turned into various things, enjoying acting a menace to others. When they arrived in the barren lands of divine essence, the experiences the bald crane went through and the hesitation on the Duke of Crimson Flame's face were all seen by Su Ming. But right then, when the purplish gold tree said his piece, Su Ming's assumptions became even more complicated. It could be that the bald crane did not possess its memories even during the era of the fifth true world. Su Ming was almost certain now that the event that resulted in its memory loss had not happened in the fifth true world's time, but an even more ancient age. However, this was not the time for him to ponder over this. Currently, he was in an incredible hurry. As the crane shouted out at him, he spread his soul outwards again and sent it filling up even more Venus pathways. 31, 33, 35. Su Ming's expansion was incredibly fast. As he was doing that, Yikang roared, and the bald crane let out a piercing screech that grew increasingly more intense as they continued shrieking amid the ceaseless booms echoing within the tree's body. Damn you, you failure! Even if I'm incomplete and am badly injured, you're still not my opponent, because you are also incomplete and similarly injured. By the looks of it, you weren't just gravely wounded once, but thrice, up to the point that your real body broke down and you only have your soul left, and besides being useful in my body, you have nothing worthy of praise in the world outside. You can only be trampled by others, you piece of trash that can only imitate other people's presences, failure, traitor. Boom, boom, boom. As the bald crane's and Yikang's wills fought repeatedly, the crane's body disintegrated multiple times. While it might be able to gather together itself each time, the body was growing increasingly duller. Yikang, your grandpa crane is mighty and powerful, and I have an endless amount of crystals. Why should I be afraid of you? The bald crane let out a shrill screech, and turned into a windstorm in a single move that charged towards Yikang's will. Su Ming's soul covered the Venus pathways at an even faster rate as the bald crane fought against Yikang. He saw the bird's continuously dimming body, and even though its words were as sharp as ever, Su Ming could sense that its soul was rapidly scattering away. 39, 41, 43. Su Ming growled with his soul. The time he had now was gained for the price of the bald crane's soul fading away. All of it was just so that he could successfully possess the tree, but even so, it was still difficult for him to do so in a short period of time. He was still only at the halfway point toward complete possession. Yikang's enraged howls rang non-stop. It had tried multiple times to bypass the bald crane and stop Su Ming's soul from spreading further, but the bald crane would block it recklessly every single time in its bout of madness to buy time. And as it did so, it would also let out hoarse, piercing screeches. Damn you, your grandpa crane might have forgotten many things, might be unable to bully anyone except the various runes and seals, and are indeed capable of fighting against you in this place and only this place. But your grandpa crane knows that you are a crystal, and as long as I hold you back, I will get 30,000 crystals. 4 crystals, I'll fight with everything I've got against you. Su Ming. I'm exerting all my strength here. I need stimulation. As the bald crane roared, Su Ming's soul only needed a little more before it would have covered half of all the Venus pathways within the tree. 100,000 crystals. Su Ming immediately shouted. The moment he spoke those words, the windstorm that was the bald crane let out a roar and grew larger by several sizes. The light shining within the eyes in the windstorm was shocking to see. 100,000 crystals. 100,000. The bald crane looked as if it had gone mad and held back Yikang's will, which was trying to prevent Su Ming from possessing it, once more. Yikang's enraged roars rang through the whole tree. Su Ming's soul continued spreading. At that moment, with a bang, he reached the coverage of 47/100ths of all the Venus pathways. At a glance, half of the large amount of golden Venus pathways were black, and they were filled with the dense power of Su Ming's soul. Damned thieving crane, my real body is here, and you don't have yours. For how many breaths can you possibly hold me back? Yikang's will decisively gave up on trying to stop Su Ming and instead used its full power to crush the bald crane, intending to first destroy it before it took care of Su Ming. 500,000 crystals. Su Ming shouted out the moment his soul covered 48/100ths of the Venus pathways. 1,000,000 crystals. When he shouted this out, the entirety of the bald crane's soul, from the inner parts to the outer parts, was so stimulated by his words that it completely burst forth. Get bigger, bigger, bigger. The bald crane's eyes turned completely bloodshot. In its madness, the windstorm around it instantly grew endlessly and swept in all directions. As if its soul had been set on fire, it rushed towards Yikang's incoming will. You lunatic. You were a lunatic all those years ago, and now, you are still a lunatic. You're burning your own soul for those stupid crystals. Why you? Boom, boom, boom. The entire world of the golden Venus pathways trembled. The tree that was Yikang started swaying intensely, and large cracks even spread out through the cultivation planet. By the looks of it, it was about to be torn to pieces. Amid the booming sounds, the bald crane let out a shrill scream of pain. As Yikang roared furiously, the windstorm that was the bald crane collapsed, and its body rapidly shrank until it was only the size of a palm. In an almost transparent state, it fell back to the area that was covered by Su Ming's soul. Once it was enveloped by Su Ming's soul, the bald crane immediately fell unconscious, but before it fainted, it used whatever remained of its strength to send a divine thought to Su Ming. Remember that you owe your grandpa crane 1,030,000 crystals. Failure, traitor, thieving crane, you aren't my opponent. I'll swallow you so that I'll recover even faster. Give me time, and I'll even devour the other 9 and become the real Yikang. Yikang's will shook the entire area, but just as it was about to echo in the sky, Su Ming's soul spread out and covered half of the area, truly possessing half of the Venus pathways. Once he did so, a similar scene as before surfaced once again. At that moment, booming sounds that could shake the world rang in his soul, and a picture manifested before him. However, compared to the scene he saw when he had only occupied a third of the area, this was something at an even greater scale. In fact, Su Ming's soul almost froze at that moment. He saw. Chapter 829. Yikang as his clone. When Su Ming's soul occupied half of the golden Venus pathways and he saw the scene that caused his heart to tremble, the latter half of the divine thought that the bald crane had sent to him with all its remaining strength before it fainted reached his heart. You have to remember to give me my crystals, because I might have fainted, but I held back that thrice cursed Yikang for some time. I don't know how long I'll be able to confuse it, so you'll have to be fast. As the bald crane's divine thought completely disappeared, Yikang's furious roars echoed in the air, and its divine thoughts swept over the place, but it could not leave a set area. At the same time, Su Ming saw the picture in his soul. There, he saw a galaxy. Within that galaxy was a golden sea. And within that sea was a golden cultivation planet. While within that cultivation planet was a big, golden tree. There was nothing special about it, and it was far from being able to make even Su Ming's soul freeze. But that was because it was merely the first thing he saw. Su Ming could not find anything that he could use to compare to the world he saw at the moment. He only felt that everything he saw right then made him remember the spiderwebs he saw when he was still a child in Dark Mountain. Thin threads connected together to form small little squares that looked like they belonged on a spider's net. That was what Su Ming found himself comparing this world to in his mind. Beyond the galaxy of the Golden Sea, Golden Planet, and the big golden tree was another galaxy that looked exactly as the one with the tree. On its edge, there were many other galaxies that were identical as well, and there were even more of them farther away. Their numbers could not be counted, for there was no end to them. Once a person saw such a sight, they would be unable to help themselves but feel shocked, and a hint of despair would even raise within their hearts. 100,000 galaxies. 100,000 golden seas. 100,000 golden planets. 100,000 golden trees. This scene caused Su Ming's heart to roar. In fact, he even saw 97 cultivators existing in 97 of those 100,000 galaxies. Some of those cultivators were in the golden seas, while some of them were close to the golden planets. There were also those that were struggling in the highest layer of wind on the planet. Su Ming had seen some of those people before. They were most of the 124 people who had entered the stone monuments test in an attempt to make their stone monuments reach 1 million feet. As for the dozens of people who were missing, it was clear that they had already failed. I've used everything that I have, and the bald crane even fell unconscious due to heavy injuries. Only like this did I manage to possess half of the tree. But that half that I thought was of the whole was just a half of one out of the 100,000 Yikang trees among the 100,000 cultivation planets and 100,000 galaxies. How can I possibly possess this sort of living being? Su Ming mumbled. As he was shocked by all that he saw, despair rose within him. It could even be said that the possibility of being possessed simply did not exist for this sort of living being, because there was no person who could possess all 100,000 of its bodies. If there was someone who truly had the power to do such a thing, then there would be absolutely no need for that person to possess anything, because if they were capable of doing such a thing, then they were certainly one of the people who stood at the highest pinnacle of the entire universe. Am I truly incapable of succeeding? Am I truly going to fail just like this? Are all my previous efforts, near 1,000 years of struggle, hundreds of years of waiting, going to be laid to waste and become a mere joke? Is the bald crane's grave injuries to buy me some time would all be just so that it would present me with a fate that would make us despair? Am I supposed to give up just like this and only be able to leave this place after tens of thousands of years, becoming just like the others, an ordinary tool in the grand scheme of things? Do I have to remain an ant for the rest of my life, remaining a person whose fate is controlled by others? Can I only watch the people I want to protect have their lives and deaths controlled by the strong again and again? Violent waves surged in Su Ming's soul. Once he saw those 100,000 planets, he had experienced a despairing strike. It made him suddenly realize that the success he thought was already in his hand after having occupied half of those Venus pathways was so insignificant it was practically a joke. For a moment, he was simply unable to accept this fact. I absolutely won't give up, neither will I be willing to admit defeat. I am Su Ming. I am an abyss builder. I've lived a forlorn and bitter life. I couldn't control my own fate, and even my physical body was sealed by the immortals. Right now, I only exist as a soul. Heavens! Fate! Just how long are you going to continue toying with me? A crazed wave left Su Ming's soul, along with a roar that shook the sky and earth. That roar contained Su Ming's resistance against fate, bringing with it his first ever, complete and absolute resolution to fight fate. At the instant that powerful wave left Su Ming's soul, the 100,000 galaxies, 100,000 golden seas, and 100,000 planets started trembling together, as if they were shaken by the madness of his soul. Booming sounds rang without stop, ceaselessly shaking the 100,000 galaxies, so the 97 people who were going through the test sported sudden and drastic changes in their expressions. Practically all of them swiftly looked around themselves, confused because they did not know what was going on. The booms also caused the golden seas to roar and tumble and the galaxies to start shaking, as if there was an earthquake around that was so great it could shake mountains and seas. You let me grow up in Dark Mountain, then you took it away from me, telling me that it was all just a dream. Su Ming laughed long and hard. Within his laughter was a mockery that was aimed at himself as well as a roar that was aimed at both heavens and fate. The 100,000 galaxies started trembling even harder. In fact, there were some galaxies that even started cracking. Black smoke was surging into the sky from the half of the Venus pathways Su Ming had occupied. The smoke tumbled about viciously and spread outwards with a bang. You let me come to the 9th summit. You gave me warmth. But in the end, you took all of it away with a cold laugh. You turned everything into a mere illusion. You manipulated my fate as if I was some puppet. Su Ming's laughter was forlorn. The 100,000 galaxies roared with him, and the 97 people who were being tested turned stark pale. They might not know what was going on, but they could sense that there was a crazed will within the galaxies in which they were located. That will contained a resistance against fate, an opposition towards the heavens, and it was spreading out violently towards them at that moment. You let me become the god of berserkers, but after I took that title, you snatched everything from me. You made me watch Yu Xian close her eyes, made me watch Bai Su disappear, made me watch my people die. You made me leave the land of berserkers and come to the barren lands of divine essence. You let me possess great power, but you pushed me to the foreign land and trapped me here for 1,000 years. As black smoke tumbled about from the half of the Venus pathways Su Ming had occupied, and those black Venus pathways immediately started twisting before they gradually grouped together to form a face. That face belonged to Su Ming. His expression was ferocious and his laughter was incredibly bitter as he stood up against fate. You let me obtain the possibility to gain a great serendipity in the foreign land and even allowed me to occupy half of these Venus pathways, but in the end, you tell me that this is just half of one of the 100,000 trees. Fate. Heavens. How long will you continue toying with me? In your eyes, am I truly unable to fight against you and destroy you? Loud booms shot up from the 100,000 galaxies at the same time. All of them trembled viciously, and cracks began spreading through them. Wisps of black smoke flowed out from those cracks, and as it continued spreading, it grew in volume, to eventually gather together into 100,000 faces in the 100,000 galaxies. All 100,000 of them were Su Ming's faces. This was not something that was naturally formed due to Su Ming's shouts. Neither had his shouts made the law in the universe open up a gap for him. What allowed him to do so was most certainly not his possession of some mysterious ability that would allow him to make the entire area around him bow its head and worship him with his anger alone. The reason for it was something he did not know, that half of the Venus pathways he had occupied on one tree would be equivalent to him occupying half of all the Venus pathways within all the trees. There might be 100,000 trees, but in truth, there was only one tree. If he obtained one, he would obtain all of them. However, if Su Ming had given up due to his despair just now, then he would have failed. It was precisely because of his determination and his resolve to push on that he had the chance to see the tree's real self, as well as obtain the chance to possess it again. Illusions, reality apparitions, corporeality. Sometimes, if a person persisted and broke through, they could realize that illusions and reality, apparitions and corporeality were divided by a fine line. The logic was simple. It might seem easy to figure it out, but just how many were truly able to do this? If there was a canyon that was 100,000 feet deep, just how many people would dare to take that one step forward? It was just like a person climbing a mountain. If he thought he had climbed half of it, he would use his full strength if there was only half left. But if he thought there was only half left and lifted his head to suddenly see that the half that he had climbed was completely insignificant and there was actually still a lofty hill above that had no end, his strength would wane due to his despair. He would not be able to hold on to the walls on the mountain, and he would fall to his death. It was the same concept. Just how many people would be able to persist and continue climbing up such a mountain? This was the true reason as to why Su Ming could make the 100,000 faces of black smoke appear in those 100,000 galaxies. For as long as I remember myself, I have never given up. I have always moved forward, and I have always had a determined heart. Even if that determination turned into obsession, and even if that obsession caused me to suffer and descend into madness, I have never given up on any single possibility. Do you know why I did all of this? Do you know what made me do all of it? Because when I was young, I searched for my elder, yet when I grew up, I learned that all of my memories were just a dream. Because after I became the god of berserkers, I learned that everything was just someone else's plan. All the things I had accumulated in my heart began pressing down against me until I couldn't breathe. I even thought about not struggling anymore. But I couldn't accept it. I didn't want to be a puppet. I didn't want to be manipulated by fate. I knew back then as I know now that unless you can truly crush me, then someday, I will stand up. I will crush fate under my feet. I will make all my enemies spill blood and dye the world red with it. I will make them despair. The 100,000 wisps of black smoke that formed Su Ming's faces within those 100,000 galaxies let out a sharp and loud cry towards fate at the same time at that instant. As it echoed in the air, besides the face that had surfaced on the Venus pathways that Su Ming had occupied, all the other faces rushed towards the Golden Sea, towards the golden cultivation planets, and towards the golden trees. Chapter 830. Kang as his clone. The moment the 100,000 galaxies roared, the cultivators that were receiving their tests in 97 different galaxies found that they could not control their bodies. They were all forced out of their galaxies, and when they reappeared, they had already been moved to the place where the 100,000 stone monuments were. As their bodies appeared at the same time, their faces filled with shock as well as disbelief, everyone else swiftly looked over at them. 97 people had failed at the same time and returned simultaneously, while their stone monuments shone and shrank together. This was something that had never happened before in this land over countless years. What happened? Why did these people appear instantly at the same time? 97 stone monuments turned from nearly 1 million feet to several tens of thousands of feet at the same time. What is going on? As the buzz of discussions from the people echoed in the air, the 97 people who were forced out of their tests looked at each other in silence, their faces pale. They saw the shock and astonishment within each other's eyes. Something's wrong. There's still one stone monument that is nearly 1 million feet. That person. He hasn't yet appeared. As that voice rang in the air, all the people's gazes, including those of the 97 returnees, instantly gathered on Su Ming's stone monument. The buzz of discussion instantly died down. The two words that were carved on that stone monument were reflected in each and every person's eyes. Mo Su. Oi. Su Ming's face had occupied half of the area within the golden Venus pathways at that moment, and his voice, which was laden with his determination, echoed in all directions. Most important of all. I would have let it slide if you had just toyed with me, but you tried to affect those around me. I will fight against you, because I want to protect my family and all those who have been kind to me. I want to protect them, and this is the pillar that's supporting me in my life. It's the only resolution that has allowed me to keep moving forward. I will protect them. This is the only reason that I still have the courage to continue living. I will become strong, I will become the strongest in the universe, because I don't want to see the people who have been kind to me cry. I don't want to see them die. I want to protect everyone. They are the most precious things to me. They are my life. An incredibly powerful wave left Su Ming's soul. This was his roar, his cry. This was the strongest shout he had mustered from the depths of his heart against fate. Bang! Besides Su Ming's face around him, all the others formed by black smoke within the other 100,000 galaxies shot through all the obstructions and appeared near the golden trees. Without stopping, they instantly imprinted themselves on the trees and shot through the tree trunks before rushing towards the golden Venus pathways within every single tree. Within the blink of an eye, loud bangs that could overturn the world shot out from those 100,000 Kang trees and 100,000 golden Venus pathways. I burned my life for Dark Mountain and the Elder in the past. I could swallow all those herbs to make myself stronger without care for anything and break that door because I cared about my tribe. I wanted to protect my tribe. Su Ming's voice reverberated in the air. The Venus pathways within the 100,000 trees were devoured and occupied at the same time by the black faces formed by Su Ming. I lived a forlorn life, but I walked through all the bumpy roads to find my elder. I wanted to protect him, wanted to make the old man smile happily, let him see that his young lasso had grown up and could stand by his side to protect him. The 100,000 faces roared and occupied the Venus pathways instantly, eventually making half of all the 100,000 of those trees and 100,000 sets of Venus pathways to belong to Su Ming. I became the god of berserkers and shouldered the berserkers' fate. Even if I'm not a berserker, but my senior brothers are, my master is, my friends are. For them, I could give up on my struggle, as long as they were happy. I could become the god of berserkers and help the berserkers gain new glory. Once half of each of the 100,000 sets of Venus pathways in the 100,000 trees were under Su Ming's control, he roared, and those faces started spreading at the same time throughout all the Venus pathways within those 100,000 trees. The spread this time was even faster. Xianxia was madly struggling, wanting to break free of the lock left behind by the bald crane before it fainted, but this was a lock that was placed by the bald crane burning its soul. The might of that lock was something that even Xianxia needed to spend some time on if he wanted to break free. I came to the barren lands of divine essence because I wanted to protect the 9th summit. I didn't want them to cry. I didn't want my senior brothers to die. For that, I could sacrifice myself. I could live without love and pain. I could come to this foreign place. As long as they were alive, I would be happy. This is the resolve in my heart. It is my obsession. For this obsession, even if I will eventually make seas of blood flood the sky, even if I will stain my hands with blood, why should I care? I will not give up. Su Ming's voice reverberated in the air. The occupation of the Venus pathways from those 100,000 trees had moved from a 50 to 5600ths. It might have seemed to have only increased by a 6, but this was definitely not that simple a calculation, because that was not just merely 5600ths of a single tree, but 5600ths of 100,000 trees. Boom! The lock left behind by the bald crane before it fainted was broken by Xianxia. As its will spread out from within, its furious roars shook the sky and earth within the world of those Venus pathways. Even if Sui Chenzi's law is protecting you, you won't be able to possess me. Get lost! Get lost! Get lost! Xianxia's anger burned the skies. Over the numerous years, there had been plenty of people who had wanted to possess it, but none of them had been able to occupy more than half of its body. In fact, this wasn't even a simple occupation of half its body, but an occupation of half of all of its bodies. This brought it a great sense of danger. If it was not because it would definitely need to pay a price that even it would not be able to bear if it went against Sui Chenzi's law, then it would have already killed Su Ming, instead of just chasing him away from its body. Get lost! Get lost! Get lost! Xianxia's will boomed and crashed into Su Ming's faces, which were formed from the Venus pathways after he had occupied them. In fact, Xianxia was not just crashing its will into one single place, either. Instead, its will erupted at the same time from all the 100,000 trees, the 100,000 of its bodies at the same time. Booms rang out. Without the bald crane fighting against the will, Su Ming bore the full brunt of its attack. When Xianxia shouted its first words for Su Ming to go away, his soul trembled. It was difficult for him to even put up a resistance against Xianxia's strength. At the same time it bore down on him, its power turned into one that reversed time and swept up Su Ming's soul, making the 5600ths occupied of the Venus pathways to regress to only 5300ths. Su Ming's faces turned ferocious. He erupted at that instant, and without any hesitation, he chose to burn his soul. It was just as he said previously, unless fate crushed him, then he would definitely crush fate under his feet. It was the same in this place. Unless Xianxia could destroy him, then Su Ming would definitely complete the possession. Even if he died, he would still succeed. As his soul burned, Su Ming began fighting against Xianxia's will. Boom! 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 He fought against it several times, but his occupied territory still shrank down, from 5300ths to a 4500ths. However, once it fell back to this much, Su Ming's burning of his soul reached its peak. He no longer moved back, and as he continued crashing against Yikang's will, his occupied territory moved from 4500ths back to 46, then 47. When he reached a 4800ths, he could no longer continue, but Yikang could also not make him move back anymore. Intense pain shot through Su Ming's soul. It was rapidly becoming incomplete, fading away as it burned. However, as it burned, Su Ming's madness was shown fully. Foolish cultivator, did you think that you could possess me if you burned your soul? I can even choose to no longer continue crushing you. As long as I stop your possession from spreading, before long, you will die due to the burning of your soul. You foolish life form, you're definitely going to lose. You're definitely going to die. As Yikang's voice echoed in the air, most of Su Ming's soul had already burned away, but the faces that were formed from the Venus pathways he had occupied smiled in a bizarre fashion. That smile on those 100,000 faces at the same time momentarily stunned Yikang. Right at that moment, Su Ming's voice came from within those 100,000 galaxies and 100,000 Yikang's tree. Ancient existences within Yin Death region. I know that you can hear my voice, and every single one of the actions I took after I came to the barren lands of divine essence were under your watch. You're also seeing what I'm currently doing. Help me fight against Yikang's will. If I succeed, I will obtain this serendipity, and I will help you find your king. If you don't take action, then my soul will simply die, and it'll be impossible for you to find another person like me who will help you find your king. As Su Ming's voice echoed in the air, an enraged roar came from the depths of Yin Death Vortex, located in true Morning Dao world, which was far away from the barren lands of divine essence. Su Ming's soul was still burning, but only 3 breaths passed before incredibly ancient presences suddenly appeared in his soul. There was not just one, but 4 of them. At the instant those presences appeared, they immediately spread out from within his soul and formed an illusory black mask. It was naturally the seal that had been imprinted on Su Ming. At the moment the 4 presences spread out, 4 suns appeared beside him. Those suns were green, red, blue, and white respectively. An age-old presence spread out from them, and they spun rapidly around the mask before they charging towards Yikang's will with a loud bang. Damn it, just what exactly do you have around you? You had that traitorous and thieving crane, and you even have the protection of the divine thoughts from 4 people who are half a step away from being masters of fate, lives, and death. After being momentarily stunned, Yikang let out a furious roar and swept past the area with its will. Abyss Builder, remember, to find our king for us. We are the 5th true world's Yin Maelstrom people, boundless gang people, and just progenies. If you don't fulfill your promise, we will definitely destroy all the berserkers. There was anger within the 4 chilling divine thoughts, and their voices surrounded the mask before going outwards. Quit your yapping and attack. Su Ming let out a cold harumph. They had no choice. Forcing them to attack was part of his plan to possess Yikang. Su Ming had been thinking for 400-something years, and he had already calculated all possible situations. Even if these people refused, he still had a few methods to force them to attack. Boom! 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 There was once again someone there to help Su Ming fight against Yikang. As Su Ming's soul burned, it spread out at an indescribable speed. He continued occupying the Venus pathways ceaselessly within the 100,000 galaxies and 100,000 trees, moving upwards from the 4800ths. 49, 51, 53, 55, until he reached 6000ths. And it continued. 61, 62, 63, 65, 67. Booms echoed in the air. The mask that symbolized the 4 great divine thoughts from Yin Death region shattered to pieces. The 4 suns around it were also reduced into numerous glittering flickers of light during that spread out. As the mask shattered and the 4 divine thoughts disappeared, the ancient wills from Yin Death region also completely lost their control over Su Ming. This meant that he had taken a huge step forward in his path towards resisting fate. He had successfully shaken off the limitations placed on him by Yin Death region, and successfully supplanted those controlling him. From then on, he would no longer be sealed by Yin Death region. He had regained his complete self, and the existences within Yin Death region would not dare to touch the berserkers, because they needed him to find their king. Damn you, you accursed cultivator, I'd like to see what else you have besides that traitorous, thieving crane and the protection from the 4 divine thoughts. Even if you occupied more areas, it's still useless. Your soul is about to be completely burned. You're about to die. What else can you do? Yikang roared furiously. Once it crushed the mask and the 4 divine thoughts, it swept towards Su Ming once again. At the instant it closed in on him with loud booming sounds. Su Ming, who had occupied a 6 to 900ths of all the Venus pathways within the 100,000 trees, had all the faces he formed smile in that bizarre fashion once again. About 7/10 of Su Ming's soul had been burnt. As he smiled, he mumbled with madness in his eyes, "Possessing you will be the greatest serendipity in my life. But possessing you isn't the most important thing in my life." The madness in Su Ming's eyes grew even stronger, as if it had been lit up in flames. Possessing you is just a process. During this process, I will borrow your strength to make sure that I break free from other people's control and become who I really am. The existences within Yin Death Region were just one of those who wanted to rule me. There's still.
Di Tian.
Di Qian, I once thought that I had completely broken free of your control and walked out of your plans, but now, I saw everyone's faces on Yikang's numerous branches, but I didn't see yours. During that moment, I knew that you are still controlling me. Your plan hasn't failed at all. In fact, everything about me is still a part of your plan. You are absent from all the faces that manifested on Yikang's tree, just like how I am absent from it. I can't see myself, and neither can I see you. Then doesn't it mean that you use some method to make it so that you are me and I am you? That you have let our souls fuse together in some sense? I don't know what your plan is, but over the years, from all the clues I've gathered, I can vaguely guess that you want my life. It's not my life in the sense that you want my vitality, but you want my life as an abyss builder. If that's the case, then either you die with me, or you will get out of my soul. This was the insane thought that had been born in Su Ming's mind after his first failure hundreds of years ago. Possession was nothing. It was merely a serendipity. Breaking free of fate's control was the most important thing for Su Ming. Perhaps he was wrong. He was not certain whether Di Qian had fused with his soul. However, if he could have Hong Luo and those 3 powerful warriors in Solar Kalpa realm in his soul, then why would it not be possible for Di Qian to exist there as well? The less understanding he had towards this control, the harder it would be for him to break free from it. Only, by using his life as a betting chip and placing a huge bet that no normal person would take, would he be able to break free of his predicament. Di Qian, are you leaving or not? Su Ming roared, and the 100,000 faces within the 100,000 trees in the 100,000 galaxies roared at the same time. 1. This is about when the elder locked Su Ming in the house in Windstream Tribe and went back without him for Dark Mountain Tribe's migration. 2. Master of Fate, Lives, and Death. Name of the realm for those who can control fate, lives, and death. First mentioned by the Candle Dragon in For What Reason Do All Manner of Living Practice Cultivation? For what reason do we strive to become strong? 3. It's not mentioned, but I do believe that the 4th one is Heavenly Phantoms. Remember that the Duke of Crimson Flame mentioned that Su Ming had a seal on him that he didn't want to break because it was doing him good, and Su Ming said that he did have a seal placed on him? I thought that it was a reference towards the seal on the mask at that time.